Nurses going on strike. This was an interesting question that was posed by a tribe member. This was a while ago. There was a recent strike. I think it was New York. Don't quote me on that. As you've figured out, it takes me some time to answer these questions, so this question is a little dated. As I'm looking at my phone right now. Oh yeah. It's several months old, so want to know how I feel about nurses going on strike, and I'm kind of down the middle on this one. Okay, here's the way I feel about it. First of all, we suck at advocating for ourselves. So if you are in a position where you are unable to negotiate, unable to move forward, unable to find common ground between you and your employer, if this is something that has festered over months to years, that you have exhausted all their efforts, and the only thing you have left to do in order to get the attention of those with the suits and the ties and the decision makers, if it's the only thing you have left to do, then so be it. I have luckily, thankfully, and hopefully will never have to be in that kind of a situation where you are working in such a toxic environment, unsafe environment, unfair environment that you have to resort to going on strike. So that's my first thought, is that I'm hoping you have exhausted all other means of negotiation. Which is a sidebar. I'm not sure how I feel about the presence of unions in a healthcare system. I must be transparent and share that I've never been part of a union. I have always been an advocate for the open door policy, that if I got a problem, I'm going to go to the person who I'm supposed to go to, and we're going to have a direct one-on-one conversation between me and that person. And if I don't solve the problem that needs addressed, or if I don't address it to what I feel is appropriate, then I should be able to go to the next person in the echelon of leadership, the chain of leadership, the chain of command. So eventually, if the problem was great enough, I could go to the head honcho of wherever I'm at. I could talk to the chief nursing officer, I could talk to the president of the facility or the owner, whatever the case may be. I feel that the direct line of communication, at least in the healthcare setting, is the most effective and prevents miscommunication. I'm just going to leave it at that. So if you have decided to strike, I hope you have exhausted your efforts, because it leads to my next question my next thought is the concern for patient abandonment. And I think that's why when nurses go on strike, fit really hit the shan. Because nurses know what happens when they go on strike, when they don't show up for work, when the assignment isn't filled by a nurse, by someone, anyone, when your team doesn't show up at the bedside, who suffers the most? The patient. And it's not the patient's fault. I guess that's my hang-up, is that the patients are going to suffer, and it's not their fault. Now, I know that when facilities have a strike going on, that they will employ, or they will find per diem nurses. I don't know what the term that they use. They call they call locum companies, and travel nurses, per diem nurses, will show up for a large amount of pay. And that's a very interesting scenario, because the nurses who show up to fulfill the needs of the facility have to cross the picket line and literally have to go through the nurses who are on strike. And it's like a moral dilemma, because on the one hand, you know the patient needs to be cared for, but on the other hand, you're maybe stepping on the necks of people who do the same job as you do. So how do you wrestle with that idea? How do you wrestle with that decision? On the one hand, we all like to earn some extra money, especially when the stakes are high, or when the price the tag is high, when the pay is great. But on the other hand, there's that moral compass that comes into play. Your brothers and sisters in arms who have reached their limits because of unsafe, unfair working conditions have decided to take a stand, and they want their voices heard. So there's mistreatment somewhere. I'm not saying abuse, I'm saying mistreatment somewhere. And I think all nurses can empathize and appreciate that concept to any degree. So to make that decision to cross the picket line, whew, man, I'd have a hard time doing that. I would love to hear what others have to say about this. What about the online community? What about the tribe? What do they say about this? Have you been part of a facility, a group that has gone on strike? I don't know what the statistics are on if you go on strike. What happened? Like, is it successful? Do you get what you need out of it? Ultimately, is it worth it?